This is Don't Panic, episode number 263, recorded December 30th, 2019. The end of a decade. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this wrap-up episode of Don't Panic, the technology podcast on gadgets, the internet, and you. I'm Sean Jennings, joined, as always, by a couple of guys who, gosh, it's been so long, I think they're in AARP by now. It's Colby Rabideau and Dan Miller.
We're getting there, Sean.
Sure feels that way.
Yep. I like your old man voice, Dan.
Thank you. I've worked on it a lot.
Those acting classes are really paying off.
Oh yeah.
What's good, guys? What's going on?
It's almost next year.
It's December 30th as we record this. So if you have any of your to-do list for 2019 still out there, you better get it done.
Oh yeah, man. You got any last things you need to any last tax related transactions you need to make?
True. Also, if there's anything you are planning on buying from Apple and you have an Apple card, you get 6% off today and tomorrow.
Crap. I'm definitely gonna end up spending like $500 in the next 2 days.
You said it like it's a bad thing.
AirPods, Apple Watch, new MacBook, who knows?
Can we start like a charity so you can get a tax write-off where it's like people get your hand-me-down Apple products?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's how that works, but...
I don't know. I've seen some shady financial stuff, so you won't know if you don't try and then don't get caught.
Right, you won't know until you do it and then get audited and either do or do not get caught.
That's right. Yes, wonderful. Well, I'm excited to be here, squeezing in between the Christmas holiday. Any Christmas related tech stuff that did Santa bring you anything good?
Well, I tried to install those in-wall smart switches at my mom's house, and I mostly succeeded except for one, but now there are random outlets that don't work in her house, so I don't think I succeeded at all.
No.
Do you have those, Sean?
I have two in-wall switches that are smart Lutron switches,
Yep.
And I know, Colby, you have some too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got more for Christmas. I haven't put them in yet, though.
See, now, Colby, do you have any switches where two switches control the same thing?
No.
That is where it gets complicated.
Yes. That's also where it gets dangerous from the reading things online. I did.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Internet and books told me that a lot of those I forget what they call them. 3-way switches.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of wrong ways to do it.
Just wait until you try a 4-way switch.
I don't even know how that's possible.
At that time, you just buy a new house. I think you just give up at that point.
It's impossible. Yeah. I do, however, have a bank of 3 light switches that I have no idea what they do.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, they're not connected to anything, but
They're just decorative?
I don't know. I truly don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if I opened up the wall and they weren't connected to anything. But I haven't done it like an exhaustive survey of like all of the outlets and all of the lights and other appliances in my house. I just don't know.
Yeah, I stopped doing wiring after I screwed up my bathroom outlet so bad I had to have an electrician fix it. So I've taken a hiatus on rewiring things myself.
Did he shame you? Did your electrician shame you?
No, it was, I knew what I was doing, but I also didn't label it. You know, you're supposed to label the wires, and it was like a dual switch for both the fan and the light. And so there were like 4 cables, and I didn't know what they hooked up to, so I was trying them in random combinations, hoping one would work, and I just couldn't figure it out and got frustrated. And the electrician was coming anyway, so I said, would you mind just popping into the bathroom and fixing that? And charged me a lot of money for it. And he was gracious enough to do it. He was a very nice guy.
Nice.
Because it's his job. Well, that's good.
The first electrical wiring I ever did was at Dan's apartment. We only got electrocuted a little bit.
That's how you know it's working.
Yeah, I guess that did count as electrical wiring. We unwired something.
Yep. Yeah. I got some of those too. That was exciting. I got a stand mixer so I can mix things.
Wire something.
Yep.
I think you should have gone with the sit-down mixer, personally.
Yeah, those are nice. That's the height of luxury.
I just didn't have enough room. Yes, I'm halfway through making cookies.
Ooh, what kind of cookies are you making?
Chocolate chip. I put too many chocolate chips in, but I think it'll be fine. Like, how bad could it be? Right?
Yeah.
These cookies are too chocolatey. I hate It's the worst part of the cookie.
I need more dough. Yeah. Cool. I got a vegetable spiralizer, so that's the closest I got.
Have you spiralized yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't gotten around to it. And I have to figure out what I'm going to spiralize. So if anyone out there has any spiralized recipes, you let me know.
Now, have you sat there spiralizing a vegetable while you're petting your cat in your lap and you've got James Bond's feet over the fire in front of you?
Yes. Yeah, except what it is I've got James Bond's hand going through I'm spiralizing James Bond. That's what it is. It's the new laser beam to the crotch where you're just starting to spiralize him. Yep. Him and a head of cabbage. It's amazing what you can do with that technology. Guys, it is December 30th. The year is almost over. The decade is almost over, if you can believe it. It was a hell of a decade in our lives, in the show, in technology. Can you believe 6.5 years we've been doing this?
Yeah, I guess I can.
Yeah, it's depressing. Somehow we're not famous yet. I kept reading every single one of the best podcasts of the decade list, and somehow we didn't make any of them, which was disappointing because we were on for more than half the decade.
I'm so curious. What were the best podcasts of the decade?
The funny thing is, I must have read, honestly, 5 or 6 lists, and I very rarely saw duplicates, just because there are so many shows and people have different tastes. But there was a lot of disagreement. There was, I think Vulture's list was the one that I most agreed with in terms of my own taste, but it wasn't very tech heavy or anything like that. It was more sort of comedy entertainment heavy, just because that's what they cover.
I mean, was Serial on the top of all of them?
No, on some of them, not all of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, but again, it's the quote unquote best. I think if you were arguing the most important, I think it would be a different list.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing about these best of lists; people don't always agree.
There's no canonical best of list.
No, someone should just make one list and we all agree on it. That would just be the easy.
We can have a best of lists.
Oh, but it's like the wire cutter, but for lists of stuff we like.
Exactly.
Necessary reference to the Wikipedia list of lists.
Yes, exactly. I do think there is. I've been on, just via Google searches, I've been on websites where it is best of lists managed by the community, so you can upvote and downvote things on best lists, and there's just the community agreed upon.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a couple of them. I can't think of any of their names.
Yeah, there's one for different software, alternate software things.
There's one for music as well.
Oh, come on. That's so subjective.
I know, but it's the community, Dan. What am I going to tell you?
It's
they voted for it. The people voted.
What can you do?
The tyranny of democracy.
We played this game. If people haven't listened, last week's Up for Debate episode, we also wrapped up the decade. And Matt and I played a little game to see how many. Really, Matt played. I challenged him to see how many of the top movies of the decade and top music of the decade he could name, and he didn't know any of them. I don't know if that's a reflection on him or a decade that sort of passed us all by in a fractured media environment. But you would be surprised.
Top movies.
Do you know which artist had the what was it? Which artist had the top number one singles in the decade?
The top, like,
Billboard 100 number one singles over those 10 years. The answer surprised me. I will say up in the top, it was like Katy Perry, Bruno Mars, who else was up there? Taylor Swift, but none of these people were number one.
Is it like Drake or Rihanna?
It's Rihanna. Very good.
Yeah. I was trying like really hard to remember like all the Spotify ads that I've been looking at in the in the subway the last 3 weeks.
It works. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rihanna. I buy that. People like her.
She apparently was quite popular.
Yeah.
Over the last decade.
Good for her. That's the dream.
It is the dream. So if people haven't joined us on our end of the year wrap-up episodes before, we spend the last episode of the year recapping the past year and also predicting things for the next year. And guys, I think we should start with our top stories of the year. I don't know why we do these episodes, because I don't think any of us like the premise of having to pick these things. Somehow we've just always done it, and all it's going to take is one of us to say, I don't want to do it, but that hasn't happened yet.
I think it leads to interesting discussion.
I'm actually like, as much as I procrastinate every year until we're doing the show, I do enjoy the reflection that it brings. Especially this one is interesting because I'm thinking back about all the stuff that happened in the last 10 years.
Yes.
And like, there's a lot of stuff. Like, I could pick like 4 stories of the decade.
But that's what's crazy to me. For 2019, almost my top story was almost nothing interesting happened. Like, I feel like it wasn't really. I struggled to point to one story that sort of. I was even looking back through like the stories we talked on every single week on the show, and it was like nothing interesting happened in terms of the stuff we like to talk about. Now, before we get into the top stories, I forgot I had this tab opened. I thought it might be fun, guys. There was a great Gizmodo article, The Most Disappointing Gadgets of the Decade. And
Okay.
I want to see how many of these you remembered.
I'm ready.
All right. 3D and curved televisions. Remember
Oh,
curved TVs?
Curved TVs. I own a 3D TV.
And are you getting your money's worth out of that?
So it came with 4 3D glasses. One of them broke, so I threw it away. Then I was moving and like I was like looking at the 3 3D glasses and I was like, I'm never going to use 3 of these at one time. So I just threw another one away. And like, it's only a matter, like the clock is ticking on the other 2 because I literally have not used them since the year I got the TV.
But like, how do you even get a 3D movie? Like what service or technology broadcasts that to your screen?
You know, honestly, I never watched a 3D movie. There was one game on the PS4 that was like built, like the PS4 supported, probably still supports, but at some time they supported a 3D games, and you could play a game with these glasses on, and it was like vaguely fun. It was cool for like 3 minutes, and then you stopped noticing.
Yeah.
I guess is what happened.
Or like me, you got a headache and decided it wasn't worth it.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it is funny, Avatar coming out in 2009, causing a big spike in 3D movies at the theater, and now nobody sees 3D movies at the theater.
But they're still there.
They are, which is really amazing. I was looking at the screening times for Star Wars because I have to watch it for the other podcast. You can tell my enthusiasm. And there were like 20 showtimes for non-3Ds and like 4 for 3D of Star Wars. And I'm like, who's going to see Star Wars in 3D? It's very odd to me.
Not me. I specifically skipped it.
The whole movie or the 3D version?
The 3D part.
Yeah.
I honestly might just wait till it's on Disney Plus.
I don't want to. I came this close to torrenting it. I didn't because that's illegal, but I almost was like, I would rather watch a grainy version with like Asian subtitles, like shot on a camcorder in China, than
Go to the movie.
and actually go to the physical movie theater, which is kind of sad in some respects.
It's dark.
Let's see if you remember 2012's Wii U.
Oh yeah,
That
what
sucks.
a terrible thing.
I've never played a Wii U.
I don't think anyone owned one, never mind played one. They must have sold 4 of those.
I bet friend of the show Colin owned a Wii U.
I know friend of the show Brian owns a
Oh
Wii U.
yeah, that makes sense.
But with that chunky screen and that big controller, which is funny now you look at the Switch, which is kind of what it is in some ways.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think you
too
could
early.
say it was ahead of its time, but I think the games that it came out with, if I remember, weren't amazing.
I don't think there were any. Is the problem?
Yeah. Whereas the Switch, when it came out, it had that Zelda game that was amazing, and people who were into games wanted to play it. And then I think the Switch has straddled that line between the Wii and the Wii U, where I know plenty of people who are like, oh, it's cheap enough, and it's also, I can play it on the plane, and also I can do TV stuff. It has all like the staples games that you need, Jackbox, Mario Kart, a couple of those others, multiplayer ones. So people just get it as the system. So I think it all turned out well for Nintendo in the end.
Yeah. My biggest regret is that I bought a bunch of those like staple games on the PS4 and not on the Switch.
I know.
Like Overcooked. Got like Overcooked sitting in my wish list. Like, do I really want to buy this again? No, but should I? Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they get you. How about 2014's Amazon Fire Phone? You remember that? When Amazon had a phone for 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
What about the Firefox phone?
Firefox OS, yes. A favorite on the show.
Never forget. I got some of my Mozilla paraphernalia. Firefox pen.
We wrote for Firefox. And then my favorite, I would argue, the disappointing gadget of the decade. Any what am I gonna pick? Any guesses?
The decade. Oh.
Snapchat spectacles.
You're close.
That's pretty
I think
good.
it's more disappointing.
I was gonna say Google Glass.
Google Glass for me has to be, because it was so hyped in the perfect manner.
Right.
And then just completely imploded.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still think one of the best tech demos I've ever seen is when they skydived out of the hot air balloon with the Google.
Absolutely.
And then they were doing like BMX bike flips and stuff. Absolutely insane.
Yep.
And what's funny is in 2 years when Apple comes out with their AR glasses, we're going to think they're all geniuses. But remember, first.
Now, to flip it on its head, if you had to pick your most successful or your favorite gadget of the last decade, would anyone pick something that wasn't the iPad?
Yes.
Okay, what would you pick?
Let me think about it first. But you explain why it's the why it's the iPad.
I can't think of the iPad has had a pretty big impact on society. Lots of people have iPads, and I use mine all the time. It's my favorite way to consume any media, whether it's just a web page. Honestly, watching movies on it, I've been doing more and more as I spend less and less time here with my big TV, and it's great for that. Yeah. I can't think, like, other things, like maybe different video game systems. The Apple Watch is cool, but that seems like the obvious choice to me.
I agree with everything you said. I just don't think it's still not mainstream enough for me to argue it's the gadget of the decade.
Okay.
I'm gonna put up. I just want to pull up the statistics before I picked it. I'm gonna pick up the Amazon Echo and the A lady, whose name I'm not gonna say. Do you know that there are more than 100 million enabled devices that have been sold?
That's crazy.
In hundreds of millions of homes across the country, around the world, in all sorts of form factors and sizes and all sorts of different devices, all integrating with smart home and all of your other apps and music and all this sorts of stuff. Always listening, far outpacing things like Google Assistant and Siri and things like that. I think it's integrated itself into the American household in a way that almost no other tech product did. That would be my pick.
That's a good pick. Now, here's an Alexa question. I've never had an Alexa. I've only used Siri and Google Assistant.
Yep.
I was very impressed with Google Assistant last week when it knew a lot of different synonyms for things. So you could say, like, in the instructions, so my mom got a Roomba, and in the instructions with the Google Assistant hookup, it says, like, okay, dingus, start vacuuming. And my mom said, okay, dingus, run the vacuum. And it, boop, 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 it just went. And that seems like something, like, I hear people complaining a lot with Alexa where you have to know the exact incantation. Is that true, or are they exaggerating?
It's gotten better. But I've used all three pretty extensively, and I will say that Google is by far the better voice tech. Like, the actual voice, the recognition, the responses, the answers is absolutely far and away better than anyone else. Partly because they have the Google search backend, so you actually get answers, unlike Siri saying, here's what I found on the web. And it's, it drives me crazy. The difference between Amazon and Google is that Amazon has more, it's easier to use the setup and the backend, I believe. They've got better integrations with stuff. They've got a better ecosystem. They've got Alexa in more products. To me, that's the difference. And that's why I picked all that stuff for my home instead of the Google stuff, is because I just don't find Google easy to use.
Yeah, that part has been a bit tricky, like setting up things where I want to say something and have two things turn on. Or when I say turn on the lights, I want it to only turn on a subset of the lights. That I don't think you can do that with Google, because even if you set up a routine that says turn on the lights, if you say turn on the lights, it's like, oh, here are all the lights I found in this room. I'm going to turn them all on.
It's annoying.
It's the simple thing of there are two apps. If you want to use Google, there's the Google Home app, which manages all the smart devices, but you can't use voice recognition in that app. You have to download the separate Google Assistant app to actually use the voice recognition part, which to me is crazy.
That's silly. Alexa's stuff is all built into the Alexa app, right?
I find that app very easy to use.
Yeah.
And people, non-tech savvy people I know, I'm curious to know how your mom likes Google long term, because the people I know, the less tech savvy crowd, I know that has the Amazon stuff really likes it. So I'm curious how the Google stuff works.
It works pretty well, but now that we've gotten, I think, 3 days into having a routine where instead of saying turn on the lights, now my mom has to say, okay, home, okay, turn on the home. As a way of getting around the fact that we don't want to turn all the lights on anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that answer will change. Do you all have Alexas, both of you?
Mine's not plugged in, but yes.
But you have it. Do you have any dingus plugged in, Colby?
Technically, there's a Google turned on one of my Sonoses, but I don't use it, with the exception of maybe asking it for the weather once in a while.
Okay.
I will not disclose how many I have, because it's stupid and embarrassing.
You don't want to compromise your OPSEC.
No. I also don't want to admit, if I counted just the plugged-in microphones in my house, the number would be in the double digits. So I'm going to just leave that there.
Fair. Yeah, I talk to Siri more than any other speakeasy. But I don't talk to Siri very much.
I will say HomeKit is really great with Siri, but I haven't found many other good uses for Siri other than the HomeKit stuff. Like, what else do you ask her?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
HomeKit. It's so good. It is by far the fastest.
Yes.
Smart home thing. Like
100%.
I've never used. I've never used Alexa, but actually, I guess I have. My girlfriend has Alexa, so I guess I have used it. And both Google and Alexa, they take a couple seconds. The HomeKit, seems to happen instantly.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah. I almost wish that I had a Siri bubble, Siri speaker, just so I could turn off the lights. Because, like, I guess I could do it off my phone. Usually my phone is around, but the watch is so slow. Siri on the watch is so slow.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's different on the new watch, but on mine it's really slow.
I almost never use it on the watch.
Well, it's like every time I want to use it, or maybe not every time, like 1 in 3 times I want to use it, my phone is not close enough. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll use my watch.
But that's what's funny to me is when I would use my watch, I usually have my AirPods in, and that's what I use. I do the double tap.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do that with my headphones.
I would think they have the chip.
Yeah, they do.
Anyhow.
Colby, do you have an answer for gadget of the decade?
Gadget of the decade?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not it doesn't have to be a gadget, but I guess I guess it does have to be a gadget.
Decade. Well, like so many nice things happen. Like SSDs happened for real this decade. Do you remember how like my mom has a Mac, an iMac that we got probably 2008, 2009, like that has regular spinning disk hard drives, and like very occasionally I will do something on it. It is out of control how long it takes to do anything. Like,
I mean, if you think about it, the MacBook Air was introduced in 2008, second gen in 2010, which is when it really got good.
Yeah. Like this Mac Mini that I do the show from didn't come with an SSD. I like aftermarket installed one on it because it was not the default.
Although I was telling Colby this when I saw him, which is, the good part is that storage is starting to get cheap. The problem is file sizes are increasing, and I started with a 2 terabyte drive in my desktop. I just had to buy another 2 terabyte drive because I ran out of room.
Wow.
It's very upsetting. I bought it with the idea that it would be more space than I would ever need, and somehow it's all gone.
That's like a story as old as computers themselves, Sean.
But that's what I'm saying. The files, of course, you guys know I do the show in 4K, right? 60 frame per second. We got a 3D, make it look really good.
Naturally, you don't want to miss a millisecond of.
No. Every minute is 5 gigabytes. So, just let's keep moving the show along here. 15 on my hard drive. Let's pivot over to the top story of the year here. And I'm gonna say Colby can go first because you and I kind of are along the same lines with our stories of the year, which is fine.
Oh,
but
interesting.
I will let you go first. We're gonna take maybe different angles on it. Let's see.
I guess I didn't know what your story was really.
That's why I love being vague in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, mine was just like the sort of like spectacular. Well, Dan made me think of it earlier when he mentioned WeWork, but like the spectacular like sort of like out of the blue like big unicorn tech companies that had raised all this money and were gonna like change the world, and turned out like you take a second look at it and it's actually nothing. And I think like WeWork and Theranos are the two big ones I can think of. Theranos is probably worse, but I don't know. I don't quite recall anything like that happening before this year.
It comes to whatever happened to Magic Leap? Did they ever go out of business? I know a bunch of people dumped a bunch of money into those guys, and they never released anything.
Yeah, but like that's like I feel like that one's not weird, or not that it's not weird, but like that was more normal. It wasn't like maybe it was at a different scale. I mean, this happens every day on Kickstarter, right? Like there's some cool looking Kickstarter, and Kickstarter would be a great like story of the decade. There's so many
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah, you're right.
But like I'm sure that is that's like happening like 20 times an hour on Kickstarter. But it was like the scale of these where it was like, the
Billions with a
next
B.
right, Facebook, Google, Amazon size, like they're gonna be the next like take over the world company, and like totally BS. I don't know.
Well, I don't think we were really paying attention at the time. Maybe Sean was, because Sean's a very worldly person, or a very world wise.
Reads
But
too
I,
much Twitter. Yeah.
yeah, the .com stuff. I have to imagine that there was some sketchy companies back then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you did anything to make the quarter, and you did anything to bump up the stock price.
Did we talk on this show about the SoftBank CEO, who is like now one of the primary investors in WeWork?
Mm-hmm. I don't know that we did. I definitely
we didn't get into the
podcast
details of it.
Oh, then you probably know more than I do, Colby. But his like past with, he did this exact same thing back in the .coms, like take companies that are, don't have solid business fundamentals, but maybe could, like pretty risky moves, and says he's going to rehabilitate them. He did this during the .coms and failed and lost all of his money. And it's not until recently that he's had, money to invest in companies at all, and now he's doing it all over again.
Yeah. Well, I like the story I heard was about like SoftBank and their. I don't know if SoftBank is a broader thing, but like they have this like investment arm, and that's kind of what they've become notorious for in the last like 5 or 10 years, is like they kind of changed that sort of like unicorn investment, because like they started just putting like tons of money into like possibly flimsy things, like way more money than people were investing in things before. And it kind of like, I don't know, like started an arms race sort of, where it like, I don't know. Like I remember they whatever show it was probably Planet Money. They were like interviewing like people who were running companies at the time that they kind of started doing this, and they were like out looking for like $1 million of investment, and SoftBank would come in and offer them like $100 million.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you'd be amazed at I was just looking, SoftBank, I think the first time I ever heard of them was they financed when Sprint and Nextel merged way back in the day, and ended up owning a big piece of it when the deal ended up being a disaster and they lost a bunch of money. But they owned pieces of, Alibaba was where they made most of their money, but they still own 85% of Sprint, Boston Dynamics, Fanatics, which if you haven't heard of, giant online retailer for sportswear. They also own 5% of Slack, which I didn't know. WeWork, a bunch of other. Those are just some of their big ones. Obviously, Yahoo Japan, which is still a big thing over there. They own half of that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah, my story of the year kind of parallels that, but what I wrote in the spreadsheet was tech geniuses are secret dumb guys. And I think this was the year we learned that like the tech geniuses that were supposed to lead us into the future are secret dumb guys like Elon Musk, who we all thought was brilliant, and then it turns out he just had a lot of money. I mean, I'll give him the rockets thing, but then he's like, "Oh, we're going to build all these Hyperloop tunnels." So he's like, on second thought, no, we're actually going to build these tunnels for cars. On second thought, we're going to build these tunnels to put Teslas in. On second thought, we can't build tunnels. Like, I don't get it. And then he smoked weed, and then got in trouble with the SEC for it. And then he got sued for calling someone a pedophile. He's a very dumb man. I also throw into that category the WeWork guy whose name who drove the business into the ground, but then still
Adam something.
Yeah, got a giant parachute out of it. You can throw in the Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos, I think is another example where, maybe she was a little more criminal than dumb. But I don't know. I think it's just been revealed that we can't. I struggle to put my faith into the one person on top of a giant business who is some sort of genius supposed to lead us into the future. I think that's very rare. I think of someone like I had his name before the show and it's blanking me. The guy who's running Microsoft these days.
Sundar Pichai.
There you go. Yes. And the guy, like he's a low key guy, and he just kind of runs the business. Like it's the flashy guys who are super suspicious to me, and I don't think we should be trusting them anymore like we used to with blind faith.
Yeah, well, and I feel like that was part of the WeWork Theranos story. It was like they were like charismatic, like Elizabeth Holmes and the WeWork guy were like convincing and like charismatic people, but that was like no one ever double checked. Like no one ever like looked at their, looked too deeply at what they were actually saying and doing. And
yeah,
this is what we got.
Even Mark Zuckerberg had a tough year. So I'm just saying, if anyone is called a disruptor, I'm gonna think they're probably a dumb person. So they've really ruined that reputation. And if you want, you can go listen to the Up for Debate episode a couple weeks ago where I rant and rave about why the term entrepreneur is very bad, which I would love to rehash, but we don't have the time. So go and listen to that. Dan, your story of the year here.
My story of the year it's tied up with like all the political stories of the year. I call it state actors. You got all of the stuff with the Russians and the election meddling and Facebook, and then TikTok being associated with which country again? China. The China Apple App Store stuff, the China NBA stuff, the Taiwanese flag in the App Store stuff, like all of those things I think are the most interesting. And I think, to toot my own horn for a second, it ties very much into my story of the year from last year, the tech activism. And I think this is like a continuation of all that stuff, where a corollary to all these stories is the internal petitions and protests at these various companies about the actions that some of these companies have taken to comply with different state actors.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you hear the story of Totok?
I saw that and I thought it was TikTok, and then by the time I realized it wasn't, it was too late.
It was too late.
It was too late. I lost the story. I was like, oh, crap.
No, just quickly, Totok was an app that became very popular in the Middle East and around the world for as a chat app. And it turns out it was developed by the government of the United Arab Emirates specifically to track every conversation, movement, relationship, appointment, sound, and image of those who install it on their phones. Downloaded millions of times. Yep.
It was just so fun.
Yes. I mean, hey, if you don't mind, then, good for you. You got a great chat app out of it, I guess.
Yeah. Crazy.
God, remember when technology was fun? We didn't have a single positive story of the year.
It can still be fun sometimes.
Were there any good tech stories this year? Like anything?
Any good tech stories this year?
Yeah, like stories of the year that are, uplifting, good things that happened. And anything.
I mean, there are funny things that happened, like Cybertruck.
That's
true.
Funny. Elon Musk is a dumb guy. Yeah, Cybertruck. Yeah, for sure. That's fun.
Cybertruck.
Well, guys, 2019 may have been a tough year, but thank God it's over. We've got to talk about 2020. Every year we make predictions about what we think is going to happen next year, and of course, it's everyone's favorite when we recap what happened last year in terms of our predictions. We do track them year over year. Dan, your prediction last year, it says here in the sheet, I did not listen to last year's episode, so I don't remember the details. It says Switch takes over.
Yeah, all the new games are going to come out on the Switch, and yeah, it'll be the most popular console of the year. I think that was my prediction.
How do we vote? Do we give that a thumbs up of it happened? I give it a thumbs up. a thumbs up. It was certainly the
Yeah,
most
I
talked
think
about
if-
game console of the year.
Yeah, and if you look at the games that came out in 2019, oh god, this is not the page I want. You got the new Pokemon game. Everyone talked about the Fire Emblem game, and then you keep going and you get Mortal Kombat 11, Crash Bandicoot, that Tetris. God, the online Tetris game that everyone was super excited about. Untitled Goose Game, that was on the Switch exclusively for a while, I think.
What is
Yeah,
Untitled
I call
Goose
this a
Game?
win. Colby, what did you just say?
I said, what is Untitled Goose Game?
Oh my god.
Were you not on social media for about 4 weeks in like mid-September?
November?
Yeah,
No,
whenever
I
it
don't-
was.
I don't Twitter anymore.
Oh
Colby,
no!
you don't know what the Untitled Goose Game is. My god.
What do you think it is?
Yeah, just from that.
Just from that, we'll tell you it's a video game.
I mean, I guess it's a game. I'm imagining like Goat Simulator or something.
Close.
What's
Colby.
give me the elevator pitch?
You're a horrible goose, and you run around and cause mayhem.
And it was
That's
very popular.
That's basically what Goat Simulator is.
There you go.
I think you should get Untitled Goose Game, Colby. It's a lot of fun.
All right. I
Is
mean,
there-
it looks silly.
Does it have a multiplayer? It should have a multiplayer. That would be.
And here's a fun fact. Let me make sure I'm getting this right.
Sean, if it had multiplayer, it would be called Untitled Geese Game.
Boom, the sequel. I love it. That's a game I would play.
Let me make sure I'm getting this right, Colby. The people who made this game also made your former favorite editor, Coda.
Really?
They also made Firewatch.
Firewatch? Oh, Firewatch. I remember. It does have a Untitled Goose Game. The screenshots do look kind of Firewatchy.
They're also the people making that Playdate console with a crank on the side.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, well, wait, did we not talk about that on the show?
We absolutely did not.
Oh. I'll put it in the...
Dan just trying to squeeze in a few more 2019 stories before the year is over.
Sorry, I thought for sure we would have talked about this.
Can't get enough. What the fuck?
God damn. A new handheld gaming system. Look at this thing.
Have you seen this, Sean?
This is all new to me. Somehow I missed this one. It must not have been big on Twitter.
It's like a whatchamacallit, kind of a retro game console, but it's physically created such that you would only make games that are meant for this. It's supposed to get, like, you get your games, you subscribe, or maybe when you buy, I'm not sure what the business model is, but you'll just get games periodically. And they'll just show up on the thing.
Yeah,
and they'll be.
They say it's 12 brand new games, one each week for 12 weeks. Some are short, some are long, some are experimental, some traditional. All are fun, but they don't tell you what the games are before you buy it.
And has a crank on it.
It sure does. It will cost $149 and ship in early 2020. All 12 games in Season 1 will be included.
Yeah, see, okay, yeah, so there might be future seasons. Anyways, these people, they make fun stuff.
Wow.
Cool.
Weird. I do remember Coda back in the day. Simpler times, Dan. Simpler times.
Now, Colby, you predicted that 2019 would be the year of the completely wireless phone, borrowing an early Dan prediction from years past.
Spoiler alert. It wasn't.
Too early.
Yeah. Too soon. Somebody should scoop that up. I can't do it.
I was about to say
last year.
Well, you've both picked it, so it's now really up to me to.
Right.
I'm going to get it right at the right time.
By default, I think you just can have it.
I look so smart.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll get there someday. And my prediction for 2019, we start taking privacy seriously, which I'm going to take the W on. Because I think we had, I don't know if we succeeded, but we certainly had a lot of privacy-related scandals, and we certainly had a lot of new rules attempted to being put in place, Facebook's Supreme Court and all this kind of crazy stuff. We saw a lot more with the EU.
Wait, what is Facebook's Supreme Court?
There's so many stories we didn't get to this year, guys. Mainly because they were boring. So Facebook did this big thing of like, oh, we got to figure out all the rules and stuff, and Zuckerberg has too much power. So in November, Zuckerberg penned a blog post laying out his plan to create a Supreme Court for Facebook. Once it's fully staffed, the body will be in charge of adjudicating appeals from users whose content has been removed from the platforms. It will also make judgments on cases referred to it by the company itself. The board will be made up of independent people, at least 11 members, and likely to be up to 40 members when fully staffed. Each board member will serve no more than 9 years, divided into 3-year terms. They will be part-time, although the board will be served by a full-time staff to review submissions and conduct research. It's very complicated.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah. Yep, and supposedly it can even overturn Zuckerberg.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power.
It is, all 40 people.
All 40.
No, I don't quite understand it, but there you go. The Supreme Court.
Interesting. I did not hear about that at all. Amazing.
It was when Facebook was putting out a bunch of the like new privacy stuff, and they did for like 2 months there. They were constantly pumping stuff out, which we talked about some of it. Guys, let's get to our 2020 prediction. Two of us have picked things that will implode, so I'll let Colby go first. What do you think's going to happen this year?
I think we're gonna have like a whole America privacy legislation this year. California happened this year, so next year I think it'll happen. Maybe
very bold prediction.
Yeah, I think it could happen. I feel like it's one of the few things that could happen. With respect to
in a highly divided political climate in an election year.
Yeah, because everybody thinks Mark Zuckerberg sucks. So.
That's true. That is one thing we as Americans can all agree on. He's weird and we don't like him.
Right. I'm not quite sure what it is, but we just don't
he's off-putting. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like it. Now, are you optimistic about said legislation? Do you think it'll be good, or you think it'll be, like, bad?
I don't know. I think it'll probably be bad. Or maybe optimistically, it won't be as good as it should be, but...
Better than nothing, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my guess. I don't have too much more to say about it.
It's a good prediction and one that's easily provable. So
exactly.
Awesome. I have gone ahead this year and decided to pick on esports and the fact that it's going to implode upon itself because it doesn't make any money. Now, I want to be very specific with what I mean. I'm not talking about Twitch. Twitch will still be popular. People will still stream video games. I'm talking about the multi-million-dollar, in a stadium, broadcast on ESPN esports tournament stuff. In 2019, we saw a lot of companies dumping a ton of money into getting these things started and up and running, whether it's from the promotion side, whether it's from the marketing and the advertising side, sponsors and all of that. 2020 becomes the year where they start wondering, okay, what's the return on our investment here? How are we making money on this? And I think they're going to learn they're not. And it will it'll never get mainstream enough to make it worth their while, and all the money is going to start pulling out. And I think the sort of big esports is going to fold in upon itself. That's my prediction.
Seems legit.
I mean, I could be completely wrong. They could find it's a great investment and it continues, but I haven't seen any indication that it's going mainstream enough. You know, so it's sort of like UFC, I think, is maybe a good comparison where it makes money, they do fine, but they're not quite mainstream. You don't see like big. It's not UFC presented by Pepsi or sort of mainstream advertisers. It's still niche, and I think esports will go there, and we'll start to see some money pulled out of it. Who knows? I've almost never been right in my predictions on this show, so. And this one is also very hard to prove, so it'll be fun in 2020 to figure that out. If that happened, Dan, what's your prediction?
My prediction, I think Google has crossed a Rubicon, mostly internally, and I think they're trending towards crossing one externally, where people will. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but it seems like they're reaching a breaking point, and I think that they are just going to peter out because they can't hire people, or people will just stop trusting them, like the younger people did with Facebook, the app. And we're just not going to see like the Google of doing things with like Google Glass and doing fun, crazy stuff and being innovative. I think is just going to go away. We've already seen that with the new Google CEO, and I think they say that they're scaling back the Alphabet projects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to continue, and we'll go into 2020, and next year we'll look back and there'll be some new Pixel phones, there'll be some new Chromebooks, and that'll be it.
So the end of innovation at Google is sort of the direction you're going at.
Yep. Yeah.
I was about to say Google downfall is very dramatic.
IBM. How's that?
Google becomes IBM. I love that, actually. That's a really good way to... A company that markets itself a lot, and then you just think to yourself, but what do they actually do?
Yeah. Everyone will still use the search engine unless things go really, really poorly, but they won't have the capital, like not money-wise, but politically, human resource-wise, culturally, to do the other stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if we ever hit the point of you think about the sort of couple big tech companies, your Apples, Googles, Facebooks. Is there such a thing as too big to fail? Someday we will ask that question of those companies. I don't think we're there yet. But someday we will, and I don't know what the answer is. You know, they used to say that about IBM, and they used to say that about Ford Motor Company and other giant companies of days past. Sears Roebuck and Company was at one point the biggest retail business in the world. So
true,
but it also took them 100 years to go out of business. So these companies have a lot of runway left.
Right. I mean, IBM hasn't gone out of business,
no,
right? Like
not at all.
Okay.
But they're also a lot smaller than they used. General Electric is another great example, right? Once the biggest company in the world, still exists, but as a shell of its former self.
Indeed.
Cool. Well, before we move on to the picks of the year, guys, I gotta ask, because it's really the thought in everyone's minds. 2020 is an election year. Who do you think is going to be president when we do this version of the episode next year? You want to make a prediction? This is one thing you can really be specific about. One name who will be president-elect when we record this show next December. There's no penalty for being wrong, but I will try my best to... I won't remember we did this, but I will try to remember that we did this. I'll have to write it in the sheet so I don't forget.
I already have my long-standing bet that people will never change a president when the economy is doing well. When was the last time a president lost re-election?
It would be Bush Sr. Lost to Clinton in 92.
Yep. So that's my prediction.
But also, a president with a good economy has never run with this low of an approval rating. So you got it, which outweighs the other.
Yep.
All right, so Dan's got Trump winning, predicting 2020 to be a great year. Colby, you wanna take a stab?
Lincoln JP. No.
Yes, yes.
That's an original "Don't Panic" meme.
That goes back.
Oh boy, I don't know. Like, I want to feel positive and think that something will happen. I To be honest, I don't know who's still in the Democratic primary. Like, I have not been following since the
Colby,
beginning.
I'm starting a petition to get you back on Twitter.
Yeah,
You're
maybe.
missing so much.
Maybe it'll be like in a surprise turn. It'll be like a battle of the billionaires, like Michael Bloomberg and Donald Trump.
Battle of the Billionaires.
Battle.
Ding, ding, ding.
We call it Billionaire Bowl.
Billionaire Bowl. Yeah, I don't know.
You have to pick. I'm gonna make you pick somebody. You're not being let off the hook. Not this time.
Can I look at the polls now?
All right, you go to the polls, and I will make my prediction. I like Dan's prediction, to be honest with you, because I have no faith in our nation. But I'm gonna go with, this is not the person I would vote for. I just want to say who's gonna win. I think we're gonna have President Joe Biden. I do. I really do. Which would bum me out, but that is my prediction.
Yeah. I mean,
Colby, Dan and I took really predictable choices. Go with the outside candidate. Gamble here. Show us that we're clowns. Take a Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, Buttigieg.
Put yourself in the Yang Gang.
Klobuchar. Klobuchar Mentum. Sweeping Iowa.
Sweeping Iowa. I'm looking at the 538 polls right now.
This is the kind of poll analysis people like. 5 seconds of looking at the polls.
I got this. I don't know. I think we're gonna see. It's gonna be Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. They're gonna be president and vice president. I'm not willing to pick which one of them.
I'll give you that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Because actually, there's a lot. I could do a whole show on politics because I do find it very interesting, the sort of polls of it and all that. But Warren and Bernie is very interesting because they actually go after very different audiences with the same politics. So to team them up, very interesting. The question is, who's on top of that ticket?
Right.
Bernie's more popular.
He is, looking at these polls.
Warren plays better with women who are very anti-Trump. So
that's true.
Anyway. All right. That was stupid, but we'll see how that goes. We're all going to regret making those picks next year.
Yep.
I'm still reminded of the Up for Debate Politics, the one politics episode we ever did predicting the 2016 election, and the word Trump was never said once in the entire episode. So I still feel stupid about that. Guys, it's our picks of the year, where it may be something we picked on the show, maybe not, but it's one thing that sort of represents our 2019 in terms of things that we like. Guys, let's take a look at I'm gonna have Colby go first because I really like his pick.
My pick of the year is Spindrift. I was looking back through all my picks, and only one has really stuck with me through the whole year. And it's well, actually, it wasn't even my pick. It was Sean's pick.
It was. I still love me some Spindrift.
Right. This was the year that I started drinking Spindrift, and I continue to drink it. Not like uncontrollably, but like if I go get lunch and there's Spindrift available, I purchase one. It's no longer a question. It's just
it's a good, reliable option.
Yeah.
I think in a world of insanity and madness, I think having something that is stable and reliable and you know what you're getting every time you crack a can.
Yep.
I'm down with that.
Now, other people and I also have picks of the decade. Are we going to do that now, or are we going to do a second pass?
I don't have one, but you two can do it.
Yeah, no, let's do picks of the decade as well, Colby. What do you got?
Oh, okay. I think HomeKit is mine because, I mean, we talked about it before. The smart home stuff is finally...
Oh, never mind. I totally have one.
Yeah. Don't worry. Yeah, HomeKit's mine because, like, HomeKit Smart Home is actually usable. And that was not the case in, 6 years ago when I first started trying to do smart home stuff. So,
yeah, I would say a rare, maybe not as rare as it used to be, but a rare Apple service that has sort of actually worked out.
Yeah, and it wasn't like
before.
Right. I feel like it was kind of under the radar. Like it wasn't like a headline like thing. It was just like a thing they were doing, and it existed for a long time. Like I only tried it the last year, this year, really, honestly.
Yeah. And that to me is why, talking about the future, what's going to happen with ARKit?
Arc.
It's not much now, but it could be a lot later on.
Right. Who needs HomeKit when
Your home is virtual. Okay. Excellent. All right. I'll go next, and we'll let Dan send us home. I really struggled to come up with a pick of the year this year because I really didn't like anything I picked this year, unfortunately. It was going to be my Hydro Flask mug I use at work every day, but I'm like, that sucks.
It's almost as lame as Spin Drip.
Yeah, it's not great. And then I look back at I would have just repicked my past year's picks, which is the Philips Hue bulbs, the AirPods, the Wise Cam. I still love all those things. But I thought about it and I decided, I'm like, can I pick this? I bought a new car this year. My first new car in a decade, actually. And I love my last car. It really did represent the 2010s very well. But I need an upgrade, and I am a big fan of the connected car. The sort of tech features of my car, whether it's CarPlay, which works extremely well, whether it's the sort of integrated smart stuff. I can start and lock the car remotely with an app on my phone. All that kind of stuff works extremely well. It's pretty flawless. It's greatly improved my driving experience. I would argue my driving safety to some degree, because it's a lot easier to use than back when I was just doing Bluetooth audio and a mount for the phone. And so overall, yeah, I think that was sort of my big tech thing of the year was my car and the idea of the connected car. We've come a long way. My pick of the decade I'm much more proud of because I think I actually feel pretty good about this. It's Vine. Remember Vine?
Mm-hmm.
Launched in 2012, shut down in 2016. Way ahead of its time. First of all, TikTok is just Vine. They kind of just did Vine and are very successful. And Vine was successful, so it's a good idea. And also, remember how like nice and friendly Vine was? Now, would it have, if it had stuck around, would it have gotten shitty like everything else? I don't know. They picked the right time to shut down. But I miss the positivity and creativity that 6 seconds of video gives you. And I still have seen old Vines float around on the internet that are still great to this day. I miss Vine greatly. I think it was an amazing app. I think TikTok proves it was a successful idea, and that Twitter, like most things they bought, Periscope, drove it right into the ground. TweetDeck. So, yes. So that's my pick of the decade is Vine.
Nice.
Dan? Go ahead, Colby.
Did you know Snapchat was a product of this decade? September 2011 it was released.
Wow.
Instagram too. Instagram was released 2010.
Wow, that's 10 years. That's crazy.
Yep.
My pick of the year is the one Wemo smart outlet that I have, and the 3 that my mom have. I use it I only use it for about half the year. I use it for my air conditioner and for my Christmas tree. For the air conditioner, it's amazing because it turned my ancient air conditioner into a smart air conditioner. And now I'm afraid to get a new non-smart air conditioner.
Fear not, Dan. New air conditioners do the same thing.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine does, anyways. I could send you the link.
Yeah, that would be good. And the ones that my mom have for lights work great too. My pick of the decade is AirPods. AirPods Pro, however you want your AirPods. They're great. They almost always work. They work about 98% of the time for me. I remember that was one of the first things one of the first conversations we had was like, why doesn't Apple make Bluetooth headphones that just work and they don't have to pair, you don't have to do 0000 and do all this crap, and they did it, and it's great, and I use them every day. I probably use them more than my iPad, so maybe that would be my gadget of the decade.
I was trying to, while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, was there a better example of a first-gen slam dunk product from Apple? Like a first-gen product that honestly worked more than 90% of the time. And nothing immediately came to mind that they hit so well the first time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not the Apple Watch, not the first MacBook Air.
No, none of it. And very few tech products are good in their first iteration. It usually takes a couple to get it right. And I agree with you. I think you could even make a broader point about just wireless everything or even wireless audio, but I think it doesn't happen as quickly without the success of the AirPods. So I'm with you. That's a great pick.
I wouldn't have been... If the AirPods didn't exist, I wouldn't have picked Bluetooth headphones. I hate Bluetooth headphones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, when I talked about it on the show before, it has actually changed in the same way a smartphone did. It changed how I operate my life. It's had that big of an impact in terms of how much I'm listening to and where I'm listening to. It's a very consequential product. I agree. Very cool. Guys, anything else you'd like to say about this year, about 2019? Any final thoughts?
I don't know. We did it. Another one on the books. 2019,
I don't know. I was a pretty big fan. Better than 2018, better than 2017. So we're on an upward trajectory.
I didn't care for it. It was a good year for me personally, but I think in general I didn't care for it.
All right.
I'm going to try and be optimistic about 2020. 2020
That's
is either...
good.
I will say it right... My prediction right here, right now, 2020 is either going to be an amazing year or the worst year. Like, there's no in-between on 2020.
Yeah.
Because the same way we all felt about 2016 as a year, we're going to feel about 2020. I'm hoping it's in a positive direction.
Right. And we won't know until the end.
Yep.
I think we are all going to be a lot more pessimistic about 2020 than we were about 2016.
That's true. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
Well, on that great note, that's the end of this show. At the end of every episode, I thank everybody for joining us, but I think I got to doubly thank everybody for joining us this whole year, the entire year of 2019. I was going to look and see how many episodes we did this year. We definitely didn't do 52 weeks. We didn't do every week. But if I look back to the first one was 228, and we're doing 263. So that's 45 episodes. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
many
year.
Almost one every 2 weeks.
I'd say we will promise to be more reliable next year, but we won't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't make promises.
Including we're already canceling half of the January episodes.
Spoiler
alert.
Oh, okay.
Because Sean has to travel. So, stay with us, folks, because we are going to cover all of the big tech news. A lot of new products are coming out next year, a lot of new technology, a lot of stuff is going to happen. If you thought 2019 was great, 2020 is going to be even better. We appreciate all of you for joining us, both live and on the recorded version. Of course, you can go to don'tpanic.io. It's our great website. All the episodes are there. If you're bored and waiting for 2020 episodes, just go listen to all the 2019 ones. Catch up, see what you missed, and that way you can follow the story. You can also subscribe to the show wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, you can get in touch with us at Don't Panic Show on Twitter and don'tpanicshow@gmail.com. That wraps up this episode and this year. On behalf of Colleen Dan, we appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you next year for a new episode of Don't Panic.